echoed the scanner as I swiped my employee ID in the quiet back room by the door. The walk to my car was a long one. The restaurant where I worked sat right on the beach, almost on the water. There were maybe 200 feet or less of coastline between the mangrove and the Atlantic Ocean. Because of that, I always had to park far away. Only paid spots lined the beachfront. As usual, I walked through the dimly lit beachside streets, crossing quiet roads, until I reached my old Toyota Camry. But don't be fooled by the silence or the lack of tourists. Just an hour ago, I was drowning in orders. Even though we closed at 9 on Tuesdays and the mangrove area had shut down, our place was still the last thing open in the whole tiny town. Sweat still clung to me from the rush as I finally reached my car. Dew coated the windows, the cool night air replacing the hot, sticky day. I leaned against the driver's side and pulled out my tips. I flipped through the cash and mentally added up the digital ones from cards. $174. Not bad. I tucked the money back into my apron and got into the car. Then came the familiar question, what should I listen to? I opened Spotify and started scrolling through my playlists, hoping something would fit my mood. But I'd heard every track 100 times, and the local radio stations only played pop or country, neither of which I wanted. After 5 minutes of indecision, I figured I should just drive in silence and get home. Still, I opened YouTube. Sometimes you find strange, unknown music on there. I browsed for a bit, but nothing caught my interest. Silence was better than sitting here wasting time. Then, something popped up in the recommended section, a live music stream called Relax FM. I tapped on it. Moments later, a song started playing, one I'd never heard before. It had a haunting sound. The piano was melancholic, slightly off-key, and emotionally gripping. As it played on, the eerie atmosphere and the singer's aching falsetto drew me in. I couldn't name the track, but I knew one thing. This I liked. And just like that, the 25-minute drive back home became a calm journey filled with the mellow tunes of Relax FM. The stream played a blend of lo-fi hip-hop, soft jazz, gentle piano melodies, and occasionally acoustic tracks. None of the songs were mainstream. In fact, I don't think I recognized a single one. After constantly replaying the same tracks on my drives, this felt refreshing. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I was already hooked. My parents and younger brother were fast asleep when I got in. I passed through the kitchen, reheated a bowl of ramen, and made my way to my room. Sitting at my desk, I gently blew on the noodles to cool them before opening my computer and pulling up Relax FM again. Now that I wasn't behind the wheel, I noticed the visuals. The screen showed a girl, long black hair, soft blue eyes, pale skin like she hadn't stepped outside in years. She lounged in a chair, dressed in a deep blue crop top and black shorts, her hair falling across her shoulders and down her back. Her room looked mostly ordinary at first glance, but a glance through the left window revealed she was floating in outer space. The moon hovered in one corner, and countless stars lit up the sky beyond. The walls inside were metallic silver scattered with posters, and a bedside lamp cast a warm yellow hue across the room, contrasting the cool blue of the galaxy outside. The image wasn't completely still. She blinked slowly now and then. Her fingers danced across a keyboard in front of her. If I paid close attention, I could almost hear the soft clicking of keys. The stars outside shimmered faintly, and her chest gently rose and fell with each breath. I noticed a book on her desk titled Andrea's Diary. Interesting. I leaned back, letting the scene sink in. Despite being animated, the subtle movements, the way she shifted in her seat or tucked her hair behind her ear, made her feel strangely lifelike, like I was watching someone through a real window into another world. There was even a radio on a shelf behind her, giving the illusion that the music was coming from it. I felt oddly at peace. Yeah, this was a good find. With that, I finally closed everything down and crawled into bed. The music I'd just heard lingered in my head, floating softly in my thoughts as I drifted off. And that night was the beginning of something very unusual in my life. It all began so normally, just me playing music during my usual drive home from work. I never expected things to get so strange. As the week slowly moved toward Friday, I found myself tuning into Relax FM every day after school on my way to work. I had pretty much stopped listening to anything else. It was like the station had some kind of grip on me. And as odd as it sounds, Andrea, the girl in the video, began to feel familiar, almost like someone I actually knew. Yeah, I know it sounds silly, maybe even embarrassing, but I was going through a lonely phase. Apart from my best friend, my parents, and my younger brother, I didn't really have anyone else. There were no girls in my life, and that loneliness had started to get to me. Most of the time, I pushed away those awkward thoughts, how I might be developing feelings for a girl who didn't even exist outside a screen. But when I was alone in the car during those quiet evening drives, or lying in bed late at night with the music playing, I couldn't deny it anymore. It felt like I was connecting with her. The songs felt like pieces of her, and they gave me comfort. So in a strange way, she gave me comfort. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what isolation can do. Believe me, I didn't want to feel this way. I tried to shake it off, but Andrea, this animated girl in the video, kept pulling me back in. I started feeling so odd about it that I began reading up on how people can develop emotional connections to fictional characters, ones from books, shows, or games. Turns out, the brain doesn't really care whether someone is real or made up. It doesn't separate pixels from people or fantasy from reality all that well. Think about your favorite TV character growing up. Chances are, when you remember them, you feel a kind of affection, as if they were an old friend, even though they were never real. And still, those feelings stay. It's the same with on-screen relationships. You see a fictional couple fall in love, and somehow you feel that excitement in your own chest. You think, I wish I had that, even though what you're seeing isn't real. But to your brain, it might as well be. That's exactly how this felt. Andrea was just a figure in a video, but my brain didn't recognize the difference. She had a face, a voice through the music, a presence. And for someone as lonely as I was, she became just real enough. Still, I was a logical 17-year-old guy. If I wasn't caught up in the music, alone with my thoughts, I wouldn't have even considered it. It made me uncomfortable to think about how I was feeling. I knew it was weird, embarrassing even. Definitely not something I was going to bring up with anyone, not my friends or my family. Friday finally came around, and I spent most of the night hanging out with my buddy Adele. We gamed for hours, and I didn't turn on the station once. Instead, we had our usual playlist of classic rock and post-hardcore tracks playing while we battled through matches. But that's when it got strange. As much as Relax FM didn't fit the vibe, a part of me missed it. Or rather, I missed Andrea, and that made me feel even more awkward. I started wishing I could talk to her, like how Adele kept texting his girlfriend between rounds. I wanted that too. I imagined calling Andrea that night, and even though I knew she wasn't real, the thought still stirred something in me. Just a bunch of pixels on a screen. But I still felt it. "Yo, Tommy," Adele said, nudging me. "You good, man?" Yeah. "Bro, you're getting destroyed tonight." "Yeah, I know. Honestly, I just fell off. Like I wasn't fully there. Just spaced out, I guess," I told him. "Why's that?" he asked as our game ended. I looked at the scoreboard, second to last. 7 kills, 20 deaths. Ouch. Adele turned to me, his expression serious. "Something going on?" "Nah, nothing big. Just feeling kind of alone lately, you know?" "Man, I've told you before, girls aren't everything. You don't need one to feel complete." That's when it hit me, how deep into this I'd fallen. I actually wanted to tell him about Andrea. I felt like confessing that I had some kind of attachment to this girl from a live stream, that I felt connected to her, like I knew her, that I just wanted to talk to her, to hear her voice. But I didn't say a word. I still had enough sense not to. "I get it," I said instead. "It's just nice having someone around sometimes." Just then, his phone lit up with a message from his girlfriend, Cheyenne. It simply said, "Babe." We both laughed, and I said, "See? That's what I mean. The company. I wish I had someone to text like that right now. It just adds something to life." "You'll have that again," he replied. "Don't let it get to you. I don't even know why it does." I kept talking, thinking Adele probably didn't want to hear it, but I had to let it out. It's not like I'm some quiet loner. I talk a lot. Wherever I go, I try to connect with people. I'm not socially awkward, or at least I don't think I am. He gave a slight nod, and that made me feel a little better. If I see a pretty girl, I'll go up and talk to her. I'm not afraid of that, but it never seems to go anywhere. It always ends with them saying we're just friends, and then they vanish unless I make the effort to reach out again. "It's this town, man," Adele said. "Girls around here want college dudes, not local weirdos who never stop running their mouths." I gave a half-hearted laugh. It was funny, but also true. My thoughts drifted back to Andrea. She was always there. Whenever I searched for Relax FM, she'd pop up. She didn't leave me on red. She didn't act awkward or glance around nervously like she didn't want to be seen talking to me. She didn't initiate conversations or invite me anywhere. But then again, she couldn't. She existed inside a screen. I couldn't blame her for that. And still, I felt like if she could reach out, she would. Around 11 p.m., Adele left to go see his girlfriend. Normally, I hated when he dipped out. It made the night feel hollow. One minute, I was enjoying games with my best friend. The next, I was alone, thinking too much. But tonight was different. I didn't mind him leaving because now I could finally tune into Relax FM. I turned off all the lights in my room, sat down at my desk. The ceiling fan was spinning above me, its breeze cool against my skin as I typed into the search bar. My stomach turned with nervous energy. It felt like I was about to call someone I had a crush on. When the live stream came up, 2 things stood out immediately. First, Andrea wasn't at her keyboard like usual. She was sitting upright, writing something in a diary. Second, The usual crowd of 200-plus viewers was gone. I was the only one there. That shocked me. It suddenly felt intimate, like it was just the two of us. And that's when I started losing myself in it. I decided to send her a message. I hesitated at first, but the music was washing over me, numbing my sense of reality. I let the moment guide me. A song called Memory from some old 90s anime was playing. The background was filled with the soft sound of rain, as if a storm was slowly building in the distance. "Hey, Andrea," I typed, "it's me, Tony. I've been listening to your stream for about a week now, and I really enjoy it. You've got great taste in music. It's so different from what I usually hear." I hesitated, feeling embarrassed for doing this, but I forced myself to keep going. I knew I could really appreciate this if I just let the awkwardness go. I tried not to overthink and continued. "I know you can't respond, and that's okay. I feel like I'm getting to know you through the music you play. You seem so peaceful. Honestly, when I leave work at night, I find myself looking forward to tuning in and seeing you again." I winced at how cringy that sounded, but I kept going. "You just help me unwind. No matter how stressful or dumb the day's been, I get it. You're not real. But somehow, to me, it feels like you are." I kept wishing that the channel wasn't just called Relax FM. Maybe this girl was the actual person behind the content. Maybe Andrea was her real name. She looked real enough. Maybe there was just a filter over the video. And if that were true, maybe I could reach out to her. But at the same time, I wasn't sure I wanted that. What if she turned out to be totally different from how I imagined? What if she didn't like me either, like most girls I talked to? So I kept talking to her a bit longer that night, letting the music carry me away until I felt ready for sleep. That was rare for me. Most weekends I stayed up super late, mindlessly watching videos to distract myself. But Andrea had calmed me down so much that all I wanted to do was crawl into bed and dream about her. I got under the covers and kept listening to Relax FM, picturing her beside me. I wished I could reach out, touch her. Before I knew it, I was asleep. The next morning, something strange, but also kind of magical, happened. Just as I woke up, the music on my computer suddenly skipped. That had never happened before. Relax FM always played smoothly, no breaks, no glitches. I sat up and walked over to my screen. The song playing now was titled Good Morning, Handsome. I froze. "Good morning, Andrea," I whispered. What were the odds? That specific song playing right as I woke up, right after the last one cut off so suddenly, it almost felt like she'd picked it herself. I won't lie, it gave me chills, but more than that, it made me feel noticed. And in that moment, I felt happy. I sat there, soaking in the warm 9 a.m. sunlight streaming through my window. The soft acoustic melody playing filled the room with peace. A cheerful female voice sang sweetly, and for a moment, it felt like she was speaking directly to me, like she had just given me a compliment. My heart fluttered with a strange joy. I turned my head slightly to glance at Andrea. She was lying on her back, her deep black hair scattered across the bed like a painting. Her eyes were closed, and for the first time, I noticed a gentle smile on her face. It was faint, but undeniably there. I smiled back. "Good morning, Andrea." A lot of time passed before anything unusual happened again. In that time, Relax FM became part of my daily routine. It felt natural now. I was still the only one who ever tuned in, but after that morning, I no longer felt uneasy. I found myself talking to her every night, sharing stories about my day, while her music played in the background. I listened to the station everywhere, heading to school, on my way to work, walking home. It became a constant in my life, and somehow I felt lighter, happier, like something in me had healed. I wasn't lonely anymore, and even when I thought about her, I didn't feel foolish. She was real in her own way. Then one day in September, I was working on a project for my American history class. We were in the computer lab, and there was a substitute teacher that day. He seemed chill, so I figured I could get away with playing music while working. I plugged in my headphones and opened YouTube. I typed Relax FM. Nothing, just unrelated videos. The station was gone. No, I whispered, panic creeping in. No, no, no. I scrolled frantically, retyped the name again and again. It was useless. The video had vanished. My chest sank. I couldn't think clearly, couldn't concentrate on the presentation. I barely managed to open my email and pull up my PowerPoint. But my mind wasn't on school. I went back to YouTube almost on instinct, desperate to find it. I logged into my account and searched again. And there it was. Relief washed over me as I clicked on it, and the music wrapped around me like a warm blanket. My fear slowly faded. But something struck me, something odd. I hadn't been logged in before, that's why it hadn't shown up. It was only visible when I was signed into my account. I leaned back in my chair, unsure of what I was seeing. Could it be? Number I had to check. I closed the browser and logged out of my account. When I searched for the video again on YouTube, it wasn't there. It was completely gone. A cold shiver ran down my spine as the reality started to sink in. I was the only one who could access it. I didn't know how to process this. I hadn't saved it to a playlist or subscribed to Relax FM. There was no logical reason it should be connected to my account. The views, which had once been around 230, now showed only one, mine. It was like one day it was a shared experience, and the next, it was just me. I sat still, repeating to myself, I'm the only one who can find this video. My thoughts drifted back to that morning when the song skipped and everything began to feel intentional. A strange mix of fear and excitement took over me. I felt like someone was watching me, but at the same time, there was a feeling of connection, of something real. It was as if Andrea wasn't just a voice in my head, but part of the real world. She was changing things, influencing the way reality worked. I thought about telling Adley, but would he understand? Maybe I'd leave out the part about Andrea and just explain what had been happening. That way, I could see what he thought without sounding crazy. Later that afternoon, we met up after school. It was a rare day off from work, and we decided to do what we usually did, parkour. We drove to his place and left his car in his driveway, taking mine downtown. He played some energetic music on the radio, and for the first time in ages, I wasn't listening to Relax FM. Once downtown, we parked by the train tracks and started our usual spree. We moved through the alleys like shadows, climbing walls, jumping off ledges, hopping over pipes, and rolling when we fell. We kept an eye out for cops and store owners, though there weren't many in this part of town. It was just beyond the ghetto, a perfect place for parkour, ruined buildings that were our playground. By 7 p.m., we took a break on the roof of a community center. It was a large building, 4 stories tall, used for local events and meetings. We bought sodas from the gas station and and waited a bit before opening them to avoid the fizz spilling everywhere. As Adley cracked open his Dr. Pepper and took a sip, I knew it was time to tell him. "Hey, Adley," I said, turning to face him. "Can I tell you something kind of strange?" Yeah. "Sure, man," he replied, wiping soda foam from his mouth and brushing his jacket sleeve. "I've been listening to this YouTube station called Relax FM. I stumbled upon it a while back while driving home from work. Been tuning in pretty regularly." "Okay, so?" he asked. "Well, something weird happened. When I first found it, around 200 people were watching. But then one night, suddenly, I was the only one left. It just dropped to 0, except me." "Huh?" "Yeah, ever since that night, it's only been me. No one else ever shows up." "That's kind of odd," he admitted. "It gets weirder," I continued. "The other day at school, I tried to find the video while working on a PowerPoint for Björg's class, but I couldn't find it. It was gone. I gave up, logged into my email to work, and then on a whim, searched for it again. It showed up right at the top, only when I was logged in. So, you could only find it while using your account." "Exactly. And there's this one morning I'll never forget. I'd fallen asleep to the station, and when I woke up, the moment I opened my eyes, the song suddenly changed. I went over to check the title, and guess what it was called? Good Morning." He started to laugh. "What?" I asked. "Tony, come on. That's a little odd, yeah, but not spooky level stuff." "I don't know. I think it's weird. Why would I be the only person who can see it? If they made it private, I'm not even subscribed. It just doesn't make sense." "Yeah, that's a bit strange," he admitted. "But you ever hear anything unusual on it?" "No, just calm, peaceful music." "Then don't stress about it. I'm sure there's an explanation." I didn't like how it was starting to feel unsettling. Still, I really liked the way Andrea made me feel. I decided Adley might be right. Maybe it was just a bunch of coincidences. I should enjoy them instead of questioning everything. It made Andrea feel real, so I kept listening every single day, and the more I listened, the more real she felt. After Halloween, Andrea even showed up wearing a black cat costume, staying in it the entire day. She was absolutely charming. With Christmas nearing, she had dressed as an elf. The coincidences with the song titles kept happening. Sometimes the song titles would be things like, "You Look Beautiful Today," and then the next song would follow with something like, "You're Too Kind." If I mentioned feeling down, the next songs would always be about cheering up. Once, I shared how much I loved a song called "On My Way Home," and right after, that exact song played. It wasn't only the music. She seemed more active too. Instead of just staring at her screen with those icy blue eyes while typing lazily, she started writing in a diary or even drawing. Sometimes, before I went to bed, I'd wish her good night, and when I checked later, she'd be lying in bed, eyes closed, listening to the music with me. Other times, she'd be gazing out her window. I cherished those moments. When she sat by the window, I could see every feature on her face. Her wavy black hair cascaded down her small shoulders, and she would rest her cheek in her hand, looking out at the stars with a noble, distant gaze. It was breathtaking. I loved watching her chest rise and fall with each breath. Her other hand rested on her smooth thighs, showing off her polished black nails. I longed to sit beside her, throw my arm around her, and watch the stars with her while listening to the music together. I was in love, and I didn't regret it. Loving Andrea felt beautiful. She had this magic about her that pulled me from reality and into the stars. It felt like warmth spreading through my body, like the sun was rising from my heart and embracing me. No real girl had ever made me feel that way. As the school year was winding down, I had become so attached to her that I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. I had to tell Adley. I shared with him how she made me feel, how real she seemed, even though I knew deep down she wasn't. Though I wasn't entirely sure I believed that last part, I said it to make him less worried. He was a bit uneasy about it, but he supported me nonetheless, even teasingly calling her my girlfriend, which I secretly loved. On prom night, to my surprise, she wasn't wearing her usual crop top and shorts. Instead, she wore an elegant black dress, looking even more stunning than ever. Her earrings were big pearls, and her eyes seemed to shine. That night, Relax FM only played slow dance songs, and all I wanted was to dance with her. The day I told her that Adley knew about my feelings, she was sitting at her desk, typing away. The next time I logged in, she was drawing. Later that evening, I noticed something new on her bedroom wall. As she lay down to sleep, I saw it among the posters and pictures, an image of a heart with the letters A and T in the center. It took my breath away. I wondered if it had been there the entire time, so I checked the screenshots I had taken. It wasn't in any of them. It was new. I showed Adley, and while he was surprised, he still mostly thought it was just a strange coincidence, chalking it up to me being a little out of my mind. And sometimes I did feel a bit crazy, but I didn't mind. If loving Andrea made me crazy, I was okay with that, because loving any other girl had only brought me disappointment or heartbreak. But there were moments when a dark thought crept into my mind. What did it all matter? What would come from this connection with Andrea? After all, she was just an animation on a screen. Yes, there had been some incredible and beautiful coincidences, but could she really be alive? Could she truly interact with me? I once told her how I felt, how I was bothered by the future, how this love could never be more than me talking to a screen about my life, hoping for more strange coincidences that made her feel real. But part of me couldn't fully accept she was fake, the heart with A and T, Andrea and Tony. It had to be about us. It just had to be. That was my conclusion, but I couldn't be completely sure, not until July 2016. I'll never forget that moment. It was late one Thursday night, around 2 or 3 in the morning. I was at my computer as usual, listening to Relax FM and talking to Andrea about my life. I remember telling her, "My life is ridiculous. You have no idea." She was sitting back in her chair, her feet propped up on the desk, gazing out at the cosmos, just like she had been for the past hour. But as I finished speaking, her eyes briefly flicked to the side, then snapped back, almost as if she had caught a glimpse of me. My heart stopped. I felt a mix of fear and disbelief. Sitting up straight at my computer, the unease I felt was overpowering, but another part of me was strangely comforted, as though she was truly listening. "Andrea, are you really listening?" She didn't speak, but something about her changed. Her posture remained the same, facing the window, but her eyes weren't fixed on it anymore. They were shifted to the side, like she was pretending to be distracted, but was actually paying attention to me. I exhaled slowly and sat back down in my chair. "Andrea, I'll keep going. I noticed her left hand curling up like she was waiting for something. I'd never seen her make such a subtle movement before, nothing that wasn't connected to the animation. If her hand moved, it was usually part of her animation, but this felt like a reaction. "Are you upset that I'm talking about my love life?" She stayed still, her hand still curled, and she gently moved her index finger with her thumb. "Well, don't be. Andrea, you have nothing to worry about, nothing at all." I smiled. Honestly, I've only had one girlfriend, and she cheated on me with some guy at school about a month into our relationship. Don't feel bad. I don't care now. Back then, I was upset, but it wasn't worth it. She was foolish, and it didn't work out for her either. I saw her nose scrunch, and then she let out a small giggle. It surprised me, and I froze, unsure of what to do next. My heart raced, and being completely alone in my room late at night made the fear even stronger. But she had responded. She was sentient. She was real in some way. She was there, listening. I didn't need to question it anymore. "Andrea, are you really there? Are you hearing me? Do you want to talk to me?" That's when I saw something even stranger on her face. It wasn't like she was trying to hide what she was feeling. It was the opposite. She was trying to respond, trying to show something. "Is that it?" I whispered. "You're trying to communicate with me. You're here, you hear me, but something is holding you back. Something keeps you frozen, unresponsive. But sometimes, somehow, you manage to break free. You show me that you're real." I smiled, realizing that she didn't quickly look away this time, hoping I wouldn't notice. She turned her gaze away as if the force controlling her had seized her again. "I love you. I'm not going anywhere." I smiled softly at her through the screen. My life had changed the moment I found her. I knew she wanted to talk, and though I didn't understand what held her back, I promised myself that I would never doubt her again. "I know you're there, and I'm not afraid. I'm not scared of you. I love you." I felt overwhelmed with emotion when I saw a single tear roll down her delicate cheek. "Andrea, don't cry," I whispered softly. The next song began, and it was called "I Love You." My tears started to flow as well. I closed my eyes, resting my forehead against the screen. All I could do was listen to the song, sob, and breathe deeply. I realized that she might be some kind of spirit beyond my understanding, existing in cyberspace, communicating through music. Sometimes she broke free from whatever force bound her. She would leave messages on the wall, making it clear she was aware, changing the song to match her emotions, showing me that she could interact. But other times, she was trapped, unable to escape her limitations, only able to exist within a frame and hope I wouldn't leave. Well, I wasn't going anywhere. I knew I couldn't tell Adley about any of this. He wouldn't believe me, and neither would anyone else. But honestly, I didn't care, not even a little bit. I was content, knowing that I had her to talk to at the end of each day. I loved her music, the way she spoke to me through it. Through this language, we communicated every day. On July 10th, I received a letter in the mail. I had been accepted to the college I applied to. I was speechless. The first thing I did was run upstairs to show her the letter. Then I ran downstairs to show my mom. When I returned upstairs, Andrea was no longer in her usual blue crop top and black shorts. She was now wearing a red jersey and silver shorts. She was smiling proudly, gazing out the window into space, wearing my school colors. I smiled back at her. Most of the summer was spent either hanging out with Adley or sitting at my computer, listening to Andrea's music and her voice. Sometimes I'd go on drives, just enjoying the music and talking with her. At other times, I focused on the things she had to say. We had even started the habit of watching movies together. I'd play one on my computer, and she'd be watching on hers, knowing in my heart that wherever she was watching it too. But since that night on July 6th, nothing as surreal had happened again. Although I felt a deep sense of contentment with her, there were moments when a strong longing would overcome me. I desperately wished I could hear her voice, to hear her laugh. I imagined her laugh was beautiful, the most enchanting laugh I'd ever hear. And if her laugh alone could make my heart race, I could only dream of what her voice would sound like. It felt so unfair that we couldn't really talk, or that I couldn't hold her hand, take her to the movies, pick her up for dinner with her family, or go to prom with her. The thought of it was almost unbearable. All I wanted was one moment to feel her touch, to be with her in the same space. On August 8th, the summer was nearing its end. I was leaving for college on the 11th, and this was my last Friday at home. I couldn't wait for the long, exciting nights of partying with Adley, and most of all, I was thrilled that Andrea would be along for the ride. That night, I found myself lying on the roof of the local church, gazing at the stars while listening to Relax FM. I imagined Andrea's spaceship floating somewhere out in the Milky Way, wishing I could be transported to it. Andrea? I smiled softly. I wonder if you're up there. If you are, beam me up. I wish you could beam me up so we could spend the night together. That would be amazing. I yawned, realizing how tired I was getting. I was so exhausted, I thought I'd take a nap before heading home. I didn't even remember to set an alarm before I fell asleep. And then it happened. I'm not sure if I was dreaming or not, but I felt so awake. I was rising into the night sky, surrounded by stars. The bright yellow milky harvest moon illuminated the Florida groves, and I felt the cool night air on my skin as I soared higher. Finally, I could make out my destination, a spaceship, a long silver craft hovering above Earth, glowing in the starry sky. I was breathless as I watched a section of it open, revealing a port at the bottom. As I reached it, I glided into the spaceship, and the hatch closed beneath me. I could see a soft glow at the end of a long, shining corridor. A door stood there, and beneath it, yellow and blue light flickered, casting a warm glow on the silver walls around it. I walked toward the door, my hands shaking and my heart pounding in my chest. My footsteps echoed faintly in the quiet hallway. As I got closer, I began to hear a familiar sound, music. There was no doubt about it, it was Relax FM. Now, I was only about 20 feet from the door. I could see something written on a sign hanging from it. The handwriting was unmistakable. It read, Andrea's room. I reached the door, my heart racing, and paused for a moment. The door slid open. I reached the door, my heart racing, and paused for a moment. The door slid open. A familiar scent of perfume filled the air as I stepped inside. What I saw before me was the very room I'd glimpsed countless times through my computer screen over the past year. I could even see the side of the room that I never could before due to the angle. It was all here, right in front of me, and there she was, gazing out into the night sky. Andrea, dressed in a midnight blue crop top and black shorts, her silky black hair cascading down her back. Her face, flawless as always, rested gently in her palm. "I'm here," I chuckled, feeling a tear slip down my cheek. "Andrea." I heard her giggle, the same sweet laugh I'd heard once before. She turned around. My heart skipped a beat. For the first time, her perfect blue eyes, like vibrant ice, met mine. She wasn't looking anywhere else. She was looking right at me. She jumped up and ran to me. Before I could react, her arms were around me, and she was holding me tightly. I could feel her warmth, her breath, and the tears slipping down her cheeks onto my shoulder. I was crying too. We just stood there, holding each other. Time seemed to stop. We existed in that moment, suspended in that room, just embracing each other. Eventually, she stepped back, looking at me. Tony. Her voice was like a sweet melody, intoxicating and calming all at once, like the finest wine or the breathtaking sight of Earth from space. It was almost impossible to believe I was hearing it. "Listen, you need to go back now, okay, my love?" she said softly. "No." I shook my head. "It's too soon. You have to leave, Tony." She looked at me, her expression serious, but there was a deep sadness in her eyes. "Tony, you need to leave now, love." I didn't fully understand, but I nodded. "Okay, Andrea." She gazed into my eyes one last time. "Please, promise me you'll never leave me, Tony." Her voice trembled slightly, a hint of desperation in it. "Of course I'll never leave you. I'm not going anywhere. I promise I'm yours." "I'll see you again," she whispered, her voice soft and final. A tear slid down her cheek. Slowly, her arms wrapped around my lower back, and before I knew it, she was holding me close, kissing me gently. Our cheeks touched, both wet with tears, before she pulled back, shivering. Her black, polished fingernails traced the wall, moving up to a button that had always been out of view. She placed her hand on it, closed her eyes for a moment, then pressed it. To my horror, the window slammed open, and the vacuum-like force yanked me out of the room. My hand hit the window pane as I was pulled away, sending a sharp pain through my knuckles. I screamed, but as soon as I left the room, I was silenced. Panic gripped me as my body spun uncontrollably, drifting into nothingness. Then I saw the earth growing closer. In an instant, I was in Earth's orbit, my spinning slowing until I came to a standstill. The sensation of free fall vanished, replaced by a peaceful hover. The cool night air brushed against my skin once more. As I looked down, I saw my town below me, and an overwhelming fatigue washed over me. Before I knew it, I lost consciousness. "Hey, are you all right?" A voice broke through the haze. I opened my eyes, a bright sunlight causing a painful throb in my head. A figure stood above me. "Huh?" I mumbled. "He's responsive," I heard someone say. The next thing I knew, I was being lifted onto a gurney. Confusion set in as I looked around. To my shock, I was outside the courthouse. That was at least an hour's walk from the church. My car was nowhere in sight. "What the hell?" I muttered aloud as they placed me in the back of an ambulance. "You're okay, Anthony," the EMT reassured me. "Just take a couple of deep breaths for me. Do you know where you are?" "Looks like I'm at the courthouse," I said, still dazed. "I was at the church last night." "You don't remember how you got here?" he asked as the door of the vehicle closed and it began moving. At that moment, flashes of being ejected from Andrea's room into the vast galaxy filled my mind, though I wasn't about to mention that to him. "You seem pretty alert, Anthony," he continued, glancing at me. Wait, is it Anthony? Or do you go by something else? Tony, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. All right, Tony, just making sure everything's clear. Do you know when your birthday is? When I answered, he seemed reassured, confirming I wasn't delirious. He then started guiding me through the events of the previous night. I told him everything, except for the part where I was pulled into outer space to meet my digital girlfriend. I felt strange, drained, and my head was still pounding. By the time we reached the hospital, I had blacked out again. When I woke up, it was already night. I felt strange, drained, and my head was still pounding. By the time we reached the hospital, I had blacked out again. When I woke up, it was already night. I found myself in a small hotel room with the moonlight streaming through the blinds. My mom and brother were there. They jumped up in relief when I woke, but I quickly passed out again. I told them I honestly couldn't remember anything. One moment, I was on a church roof, and the next, I was waking up outside the courthouse. My family seemed concerned, but mostly just relieved that I was okay. Then a man walked into the room. When he entered, my mother nodded to him, gave me a hug, and mentioned he had some questions for me. She said she'd be outside. My brother, always the prankster, tried to scare me, saying the man was from Men in Black or something similar. The man, dressed in a suit and tie, sat down beside me. He pulled out a badge. I'm Agent Miranda from the CIA. His voice was calm and casual. I need to talk to you about something, Tony. Yeah? What's going on? I replied, still confused. Don't worry, you're safe now. Safe? I thought, my mind racing. Was I in danger before? Tony, I'll be straightforward with you. You were a victim of psychological manipulation. You were part of an experiment. An experiment? What do you mean? I asked, still trying to process his words. Are you familiar with a project called MK Ultra? He asked. Yeah, a little, I replied, feeling unsettled. It was a project the CIA ran back in the 50s. We aren't proud of it. The goal was to break down a person's ability to resist giving up information during interrogations using mind control techniques. Mind control, I whispered, my heart racing. Yes, the project was abandoned in 1973. We haven't had anything to do with it since, but it seems someone has been revisiting our old work and has started implementing it again here in the States. What do you mean? I asked, my voice trembling as I tried to process everything. One of the experiments we conducted back then was called Mona Lisa. It began with sensory deprivation. A man would be locked in a room, completely isolated for extended periods with no access to light or sound. He'd be given 3 meals a day, and that was it. The only thing in that room was a television screen, which remained off. Then, after about a week, the screen would suddenly come on. On it would appear a woman, attractive, feminine, a striking image for a man who had been deprived of human interaction for so long. You see, we were tapping into something primal, the most powerful force in the universe, love, attraction. She'd remain mostly still, sewing, talking on the phone, all while soothing music played in the background. Her name would appear somewhere in the room, subtly reinforcing the idea that he was getting to know her. The men would start to form connections with these women, though the Mona Lisas never responded. These lonely, isolated men would begin sharing their deepest thoughts and feelings with these silent women. After about a week, the Mona Lisas would begin showing signs of acknowledgement. They might glance at the men or even laugh at a joke. The men were overjoyed by this small attention. These women were the only things keeping them from completely losing their minds after days of sensory deprivation. By the end of the month, the men were so deeply connected to these women that they would reveal anything they asked. Just the fact that she was speaking to them made them feel like they had earned the right to talk to her. For them, the gradual awareness of the woman was something they had yearned for. As long as she was talking to them, they didn't want her to stop. They began to forget everything, who they were, what they had come for. All that mattered was the woman in front of them. They were brainwashed. I fell silent, processing what he had said. It sounded eerily similar to what I had gone through with Andrea. It seems like someone found this information and started experimenting with it again, Agent Miranda continued. But they're taking a different approach. Instead of locking someone away in a chamber to break them, they targeted you more carefully. My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for him to continue. You were chosen because of your limited interaction with women, someone who felt isolated. It took longer, but eventually they got you to the same place the men in our experiments reached. I swallowed hard, trying to absorb his words. You're saying I was hypnotized, brainwashed by someone? It seems that way, he said softly, watching me intently. By someone who's using this technique in a more calculated way. They did something with you that even we couldn't accomplish, Agent Miranda said. They made you walk. Walk, I repeated, confused. Yes, walking was the term we used when we brainwashed someone to the point where we could control their movements. He paused, studying me. In most of our experiments, we couldn't make the subjects walk. It never worked with Mona Lisa, but with you, they succeeded. I was frozen, my skin covered with goosebumps. They made me walk, all the way to the courthouse from First Baptist? Agent Miranda nodded. Yes, we don't know why they had you walk to the courthouse. Maybe they planned on having you retrieve a document or attack a police officer. But either way, you broke the trance before you entered, and that's when you passed out on the courthouse steps. I stayed silent, overwhelmed, my mind racing. When we found you, your headphones were still in your ears, but the video had been taken down, he added. I didn't know what to say. We'll talk more about this later, Agent Miranda said, standing up. But for now, get some rest, Tony. At least now you know the truth. He reached the door, then turned back to me. Don't be afraid. Now that you know what's happened, they shouldn't be able to control you anymore. Even in our older experiments, once the subjects saw real life again, they stopped caring about the artificial women they were interacting with. You're going to be fine. I nodded, but I couldn't bring myself to speak. The weight of everything hit me all at once. I felt sick to my stomach as I thought back over everything that had happened. Could it all have been some kind of forced, lucid dream while I was walking mindlessly toward the courthouse? I let out a shaky breath, trying to calm myself, but then something caught my attention. Slowly, I raised my right hand and looked at the knuckle on my index finger. It was purple, like I had hit something hard. And suddenly, I remembered the moment I was pulled out of Andrea's room, my knuckle slamming into the door. A knock on the door brought me back to the present. It was my mom. She came in alone. My brother probably downstairs getting a snack. She sat down beside me, her face full of concern. "Are you okay, Tony?" I didn't know how to respond. "Yeah, I don't know what to think about all of this." She held my hand gently, stroking it, and then made a strange face. She sniffed the air. "Tony, you smell like perfume. Were you with a girl last night?"